All right, guys, thank you so much for your time. Until next time, stay safe, take care. Peace. Fucking dickhead. What is good, everybody out there? Thanks again for checking in to another episode of Court Thoughts, the channel where we basically talk basketball. We back, boy. But today, we're doing my favorite. T-Talk, baby. Let's go. All right. What am I drinking? Well, my girl picked this, so shout out to my missus. She actually wanted to have Christmas breakfast, which is a blend from T2. It's quite nice. The reality is that, well, it's kind of like a little bit of a dreary day today. I was actually out there getting some shots up and it was fucking raining the whole time. It was sprinkling the whole time. It was really annoying. I literally came inside, had some sushi, had a shower, and your boy had to jump on and get some shit off my chest. So without any further ado, let's get into the topics for today's Tea Talk. The first topic that I want to cover off is actually the struggles that Russell Westbrook's been going through, currently playing in the LA Lakers system, and really just turning the ball over a whole bunch. Now, I actually have a pretty much on the fence like opinion when it comes to Russell Westbrook. To be perfectly honest with you, we've seen time and time again where he's played with superstars, and whilst the guy can absolutely be a machine when it comes to stats, it doesn't really seem to translate to a lot more. And I think that we've seen in the past really, really great players, some of the best players in the world, really not be able to push past much more than what they've been able to achieve in regards to individual accolades. And some perfect examples we could look at would be, T-Mac would be one. You could look at Steve Nash as another one. You could even go as so far to talk about guys like John Stockton and Karl Malone. Now, whilst they all had their own individual hurdles and challenges that they had to get through, whether it be Kobe, whether it be Michael Jordan, or whether it even be things like injuries, some of the things that we really need to consider is the fact of winning a championship is not just about being the best player in the world, okay? Now, you might be thinking, what the fuck are you talking about? Give me a second. Let me try and get this out. When you consider some of the teams that have won NBA championships, generally speaking, it is not one player that is carrying the whole team. While you could look at, say, the Milwaukee Bucks and the success that they had last year, it's not just all on Giannis's shoulders. Whilst he is a star player, whilst he is a MVP, whilst he is a champion, and we got to put respect on his name.
Y'all finished or y'all done? I ain't got no more talking.
Whilst he is a star player, an absolute machine, a legend, don't get it twisted. The guy's a champion, right? He doesn't do it by himself. And I think sometimes when it comes to Russell Westbrook, I think people kind of get blinded by the stats when it comes to Russell Westbrook. And the reality is he's played with some absolute legends himself. We can look at just the last couple of seasons that he's had coming into the Lakers. And he literally, you could look at the guys that he's played with, and there are some Hall of Fame players that are on there. You could literally talk about Kevin Durant, and you could literally stop right at Carmelo Anthony. Those two dudes alone, fucking legends, right? Not to mention the rest of them. Now, when we think about the legendary caliber players that Russell Westbrook has played with, you've all obviously got his early seasons when he was at Oklahoma and he was playing with Kevin Durant. And we also had a very, very young James Harden. Now, whilst I think it is one of the biggest losses in the splitting up of that trio, and that's a whole another gambit of fucking issues to get through itself, we can also think about the second run that Russell had when he was playing alongside James Harden. Now, you could have looked at this and seen a problem brewing to begin with. Although Russell Westbrook is a stat machine and the guy will give you buckets galore, rebounds galore, especially for a point guard, and assists, triple doubles, it's not necessarily going to generate into wins. And we can see that with him, it hasn't generated into the big ticket wins. Him being a very ball-centric player, as well as, say, someone like James Harden, very ball-centric player, it was kind of surprising that they went towards that sort of avenue in playing together. Whilst I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of talking about Russell Westbrook's career for forever, because that's not what this episode is about, we really have to talk about the teams that he's gone to and the players that he's played with. Now, when he signed with the Lakers, one of the first things that I thought of was, why? Why the fuck are you here? Now, it's not because of the fact of the signing didn't make sense. It kind of does. LeBron James, for the most part, seems to be everyone's sort of get a championship ticket. And, well, really, he enjoys the help. I think that's a fair statement to make. It's kind of like, I think this is just really setting himself up to fail. The reason why I say this, it's not necessarily setting up to fail in the sense of like, it's setting his legacy up to fail. That's where I'm coming from. You think about some of the greatest players and their capability to get to the finals doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to put the whole team on their back. And look, some players have done it, but look, I hate to break it to all you Michael Jordan fuckboys out of there. Whilst I believe that Michael Jordan is definitely a GOAT, he definitely did have help. As did Kobe. As did LeBron. It's just the nature of it. They need help. They're not the only people on the court. They can't score every bucket and stop every bucket. It's fucking physically impossible. It's impossible. Coming back to his struggles with LA, the reason why I pointed out the whole comparison with his experiences in previous teams and the struggles in regards to getting over that line into that championship realm is purely because of the fact that he is such a ball-centric player. Now, if we think about the team that the Lakers has really, really developed, okay, it's a bunch of ball-centric guys, which kind of blows my mind. Now, the argument could be made when you're talking about LeBron James, he's not necessarily a ball-centric player, but he's definitely, I guess, like a quarterback in the sense that he will dictate where the game is going, what he needs to do with the game, and where the players need to go. We've kind of seen it time and time again. But when we think about the fact that he does need the ball in his hands, he needs the ball in his hands a lot. Russell Westbrook needs the balls in...
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Russell Westbrook does need the ball in his hands a lot. Anthony Davis does need the balls...
Bruh.
And then we also think about Anthony Davis and Carmelo Anthony. Both of those guys, they need the ball in their hands. They require the ball. And there's only so much contact that a player can have with the ball. Now, in order for him to shine, I really do feel that he does need to have that support around him. But him being such a heavy scorer, it kind of like would be better. Like, my opinion, I've always thought that he would be better being pushed out from a point guard position into a shooting guard position. Now, the reason why I say this, okay, is purely because of the fact that he can get buckets up. He absolutely can get buckets up. He can assist in transitioning the ball up and down the court and can be a relief point guard when the situation calls for it. And he will be able to beat guys off of the dribble. He is relatively decent for a point guard in regards to size, but it obviously would be a little bit of a stretch comparing against some of the sizes of average height of shooting guards, especially in the NBA now. The pick players are just fucking getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But I've always thought that taking the ball out of his hands and putting it in a pure point guard's hands. Now, when I say pure point guard, okay, I'm talking about guys like Facu, right? I'm talking about guys like Rondo. I'm talking about guys like Ricky Rubio. Guys that can score, but they're not known for scoring. They're known to kind of distribute and fulfill the drive, like fulfill that role of a point guard in pushing the team forward. Chris Paul's another one. He's not a guy that requires a ball in his hands. Just know that if he does have the ball in his hands, well, you're fucked. Now, the one last parting thought that I want to leave when it comes to these struggles is I don't think that they're long term. I definitely think that they're going to turn around. It's going to be something that, later on in the season, he'll probably turn around and laugh at. And a lot of people probably won't even remember the fact that he was struggling early on in the season. But I do want to pose the question, does he need to be Batman or can he be Robin? That's a real conundrum for some players. And while some players can get over it, and a perfect example of that is Carmelo Anthony, when they do get over it, and if they are really able to sort of swallow their pride, swallow their ego, and realize that if they want to have a legacy, it can't just be about them, it's what they contribute to the team, then, that might really define, I wouldn't say it would define him as a player, but it really might help him in his journey in winning a championship. And look, that's if he doesn't win a championship with the Lakers, depending on how long he decides to stick around. Who knows? The next topic that I wanted to touch on was the return of your boy, Klay Thompson. Dude, I am such a fan of Klay Thompson. I love the fact that he's one of those really good all-round guys. And what I mean by that is he's not just a great shooter and scorer, like shooting off the dribble, catch and shoot situations, fantastic player, but he's also a really good defender. And I think sometimes people get lost in the fact of his defensive abilities. He's definitely a really good, well-rounded player. Now, in the 2018-2019 season, he did suffer an ACL tear in the finals, which honestly was an absolutely devastating blow. And it's really sort of shitty when you see star players get injured and you know that they're going to be out for a minute, and I hate to see dudes injured. If I had a magical wand, one of the things that I would absolutely wave and hope would be the fact that players just wouldn't get injured. But unfortunately, it's just the nature of the human body. It's going to break down or cop injuries based on the style of play that they have, little tiny tendencies that can actually lead to long-term injuries. And it could also just be the fact of, fucking Mother Nature. Shit can happen, right? So him having that injury and putting him out for a substantial amount of time, it was one of those things where you're like, man, I hope this doesn't impact him and his legacy moving forward. And I would love to see him be able to come back. We've seen in the past where fantastic players, guys like Brandon Roy, fucking weapon of a player, so underrated. Real talk, I'm going to do a runner back on that dude. I can't believe I haven't done one yet. But dealing with the injuries associated to his knee and then obviously having a flow-on injury when you start to think about the Achilles injury that he suffered in the and forcing him to miss out on the 2020-2021 season while playing in a pickup game, it's really shit that it's like, man, just getting this shitty deal of cards where it's pushing you back to back to back out. I'm just really excited to see the dude return. And I really, really think that it's kind of interesting to see the haters pop out where they're ready to sort of question the legacy of the Warriors because of that fact. Now, I've mentioned before, I'm a Laker fan, right? And I will not necessarily just stick by and say, the Lakers are the best, blah, 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 blah. I've been following these dudes since the dark ages, all right? I do appreciate other great teams out there. And a perfect example of that is the Warriors. I love the nature of how the Warriors play. I do like the duo that they have with the Splash Brothers, and I do look forward to the day that he does return. I do think it's going to be really good to come back. I just hope that these injuries don't end up sort of become a recurring thing, because it's one of those things that you really just don't like to see. Now, just to wrap up on the Klay Thompson thing before I move into my next topic, some of the video that I've seen of him working through drills and movement and stuff like that is actually really exciting to see him have the range of motion and movement that he has. The reason why I say to see the range of motion is I've torn my Achilles tendon. I didn't have a complete sever. I had a partial tear, but it had substantial impacts to the fact that I still have problems with it to this day. And it's really good to see that he's not having these little tendencies that you see with things like problems with confidence stepping, planting, planting that foot down and using it to sort of create energy by pushing into the ground and moving off of it, which generally can come from things like cuts or screens or things like that. Whilst obviously some of the video that we've seen of him like training and getting shots up and whatnot, it hasn't been, live game scrimmages or anything like that. It's just been movement. It is really good to see, and, I'm really, really looking forward to it, to seeing him come back and hopefully stay healthy. All right, now the next topic that I wanted to cover off was actually on the Isaiah Stewart, LeBron James elbow incident. Now, before I get into it, I am actually going to watch it right now. I'm going to rewatch it. I've actually watched it a few times, but I'm going to rewatch it. And I'm going to share it, and so you guys can see my reaction. I'm going to talk about a few things as I go along. Now, before I do that, I am checking this out on a channel called MLG Highlights, and I'll leave the link in the description. So make sure you go over, you give them a like and subscribe to give them some love, because I'm essentially checking out their video. All right, guys, so I've got the video prepped. Let's check it out.
You saw Zach LaVine light him up, then Giannis.
All right, so the first thing that you can see is you can actually see that LeBron does look like he fucking elbows him straight in the head. All right?
And then Jason Tatum.
There is a little bit of remorse, but that just purely could have been because of the fact that he got busted. And he does seem to say something like, yo, my bad, or whatever. All right? But
their number one guy, Jeremy Grant.
then it starts to kick off.
Stewart and LeBron. Stewart is...
Now, I'm just going to... I'm really not worried about the fight. Like all this fucking bullshit, fake shit fight. All right. Now, I'm going to play it again. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to put the playback speed like fucking super duper slow. All right. If you can see right here, literally like right at that line, okay, right in the where they're lined up on the key, on the edge of the key, it's pretty much in line with the elbow over on this right side. Okay. So just literally if you're looking past DeAndre Jordan, that's where it happens. All right, guys, let's watch it again in slow-mo. So we can see that there's a little bit of wrapping. Kind of looks like their arms are tucked in. He's pulling, cracks the shits, and takes a swing. All right, let's watch that again. So right here, you can see that they're tussled, they're curled up. Now, obviously, this is only one angle. But here we see fucking rest my case. Now, look, I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to defend LeBron James because it's pretty clear. He fucking hit the dude in the face, right? Now, a lot of the time I would say that it's not necessarily... This is where it becomes confusing, right? I don't necessarily believe that he's a dirty player, but I do believe the swing was intentional. Do I believe that he intended on hitting him in the face? No, I don't believe that he intended on hitting him in the face. And part of the reason why I say that is because of the act of remorse that he did have after, and he was like, yo, whatever. Now, if he was truly heated up and he was really, really pissed off, it would have been a scuffle. It would have been this like up in the face bullshit, right? Now, that's part of the reason why Isaiah Stewart did react that way, because he thought he got hit in the face. Listen, if you thought you got hit in the face legitimately, you'd be up in arms too. I absolutely get it. But I think a lot of time, especially when it comes to those situations where you're in the post or you're boxing out or anything like that, you see dudes like hook arms, and it's the dirt, like it's the most annoying shit because it's not to gain position. It's just to try and hold you. Like it's not achieving anything. Like if you want to try and actually box me out, you want to be able to have your hands free. You don't want to be looping your hand in unless you're trying to maybe call up a foul for holding. We've seen dudes like James Harden pull that stunt before. So I don't necessarily think that he is a dirty player, but does the dude get frustrated and do stupid shit? Absolutely. He's human. Don't get it twisted. I know he's in Space Jam. He's doing shit that he doesn't look like he's human, but the dude is human, all right? Like, calm down, okay? I think sometimes as well, when we're thinking about LeBron, we're really, I think the public is really, really quick to shit on the dude, right? And I'm going to come out and I'm going to be completely honest with you. And you can fact check me on this shit if you think I'm making it up. When LeBron James was signing over with the Lakers, I vehemently said that I didn't like that idea. And if you question my validity on this, if you absolutely question my validity on this, I'm going to keep it a buck with you. I used to be on a podcast with two of my homies, right? The podcast was called Cross Court. Shout out to Praz, shout out to Migs. Love you dudes, right? Now, on that, I was literally doing a podcast when the news broke that he was coming out, okay? And he was coming out and he was going to be joining the Lakers. And I came out and said I didn't want him to join the Lakers. It had nothing to do with him as a player. It's the bullshit that comes along with it. It's all the bandwagon bullshit joiners. It's that like, I personally have a problem with people that claim to know everything and they have no knowledge about a particular topic. And generally, wherever people seem to have LeBron, like wherever LeBron seems to go, I seem to see more people who have no idea about basketball seem to have really, really strong opinions about a guy. Like, I don't know. That's just what's really annoying about some of this stuff sometimes. The social context of things. Now, I'm not here to defend LeBron, but let me just say this. The guy is one of the greatest basketball players of all time. And on that note, I'm going to move into my next topic. Earlier today, I was actually watching a snippet of, I think it's called One Take. I'm pretty sure it's called One Take. It's a show with Stephen A. Smith on ESPN, and they actually had JJ Redick, right? So I'm actually really excited to see JJ Redick moving into that analyst role because I'm a big fan of his podcast, and the guy's really, really clued on, really, really clued on. And Stephen A. Smith, bro, for real, like, the dude has his head so far up Jordan's ass. I wonder, like, is it kind of like that Men in Black situation where he's like a little robot, controller dude? Like, fuck, I hate the fact that people get so blinded by Michael Jordan. And listen, I love Michael Jordan. To me, he is also one of the greatest players of all time. But the greatest player of all time, and the problem with having this sort of greatest player of all time bullshit GOAT talk, is the fact that it is not one player, okay? It is not one player. To me, it is a Mount Rushmore of players. They're the greatest players of all time, okay? Because they all have impacts in different ways. The only time that you could sit there and make an argument when it comes to comparisons, to be equally fair, you would have to talk about Mike and you'd have to talk about Kobe. Not only did they play similarly, not only did they play the same position, but they also had very similar transitions in their career, okay? Playing very athletic and very, very explosive at the beginning to kind of working into being more postal players, okay? And then playing a little bit more of a supporting role in the later years of their career. Obviously very, different sort of position, like in the outcomes of their career. But, when you think about it, they landed pretty close when it comes to the championship and the accolades that they achieved. But LeBron James is not the same. Like, if you were to take them both, right, if they were buried in the ground, okay, and we were to find their bones, an archaeologist was to find their bones and was to see the structure and build that LeBron James has, and you were to compare it against Kobe or you were to compare it against Mike, I promise you they wouldn't think that they were the same species. They're way, way different. The dude is built like fucking Karl Malone and doesn't play in the slightest the same way as either of those other two dudes. This is part of the reason why I hate the glorifying of one particular player and not seeing any wrong that they do, okay? Now, the thing that I have a real big issue, the part of the comments, and I'm not going to get into their comments, honestly, if you want to go and check it out, it's just, I'm using it as a point to be able to raise that I hate like the comparison, but there's been countless times where people have tried to make the comparison about who's the greatest player of all time, comparing Mike, saying Mike can't do any wrong. I've got homies that'll be like, man, fuck Michael Jordan, and they'll be like LeBron James all day, right? I get it. They're both great, but just because you like one guy doesn't mean you have to shit on another. Appreciate their greatness. Mike didn't get to play for forever, and LeBron is towards the tail end of his career. The dude's not going to play for forever. Stop trying to shit on his name, okay? They don't play the same. The comparison is not the same. Mike came up in a period where media was not social. There was no social media. There was no access to information in your fucking pocket every single time. It wasn't within arm's reach of you all the time. Other people's opinions didn't matter unless they were a journalist, okay? Now, I can literally go online and be like, fuck LeBron James. LeBron James can kiss my ass, and have this really shitty opinion. And there's a chance that he might see it. I could have a shitty opinion and have barbershop talk or be talking shit out front of the pub, having a couple beers with the mates. And you know what? He wouldn't fucking hear it. It wouldn't matter because unless I was a journalist, it wouldn't get back. It wouldn't get to him. Enough with the ranting. Coming back to my point. I don't think that there is a place for this tiering of guys to say that Mike's the greatest player of all time, Kobe's the greatest player of all time, LeBron's the greatest player of all time. The reason why I say that, okay, is because if you wanted to sit there and you wanted to make the comparison about greatest player of all time, tell me, what are you comparing it against? My point being is, what are you comparing it against? Are you comparing it against numbers of championships? Because that seems to always be the conversation from, like, when it comes to Mike. Well, Mike got 6 rings. Kobe only got 5. That's why Mike's better than him. And LeBron only got 4. Okay. So then are you saying that Bill Russell is the greatest player of all time? Bill Russell's got 11. Are you saying Robert Horry, Big Shot Bob, is the greatest player of all time? Because he has 7 championships. Do you know who also has 6 championships? Just to throw it out there. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. While we're talking about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, are we going by points? Because if that's the case, LeBron's 3rd on the all-time scoring list. You know who's number 1? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. It's bullshit. My point is, it's bullshit. If you want to talk about influence, then you could easily say Allen Iverson is the greatest player of all time. Or you could even say people like T-Mac is one of the greatest players of all time. Tim Duncan. And that's how I look at it. They are some of the greatest player of all time for the aspects that they contribute to the game of basketball. Don't get caught up in the bullshit. Just appreciate the greatness. Before I go, there's one thing that I just wanted to say. And I really, really want to thank everyone out there who's seriously, like, it really does mean a lot. I really do appreciate all the love and support I'm getting from you guys, whether it comes to feedback about the channel, comments, support, sharing, all that sort of stuff. Honestly, from the bottom of my heart, I really, really do appreciate it. It really does help a lot when you guys like and subscribe to the channel. So please continue to do so. And if there's anything that you would like to see me do or cover on the channel, I'm all ears. You can get at me on my email, which is courtthoughts@gmail.com. Alternatively, guys, leave a comment. Jump in there. Is there a topic you want to see me cover? I'm all ears. I'm ready to cover off whatever the fuck you want. I got an opinion on everything. I promise you. All right. On that note, if you want to stay in touch with your boy and you want to see what I'm up to, go ahead, check out my socials. My socials are just at the top of the screen. If you want to see what the algorithm has got in store for you, go ahead and click this button right here and it'll take you to the appropriate video. All right. And if you want to subscribe to the channel, you can do that by just hitting this bad boy right here. All right, guys. Thank you so much for your time. Until next time, stay safe. Take care. Peace.